Okay. And we're live. Yay. Hello, everyone. All right, let me just check settings. Looks like we're getting audio feedback. Video's good. Awesome. All right. Happy Sunday, you guys. And thank you so much for joining me. Da, 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 da. So if anyone is having any issue with audio or video, definitely let me know in the chat. Good morning. All is good. Awesome. Awesome. Good morning, you guys, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may be. Oh, it is so good to be back live with all of you. What a week. Just moved across the country here in currently not so sunny California. It's looking more like the Northwest. It's definitely looking more like Seattle at the moment, which is my hometown, and I'm used to it and I love it. But it has been far too long since I have been here with you guys. Absolutely love doing this. Hello, hello. Hello, Kim. Hello, Mickey. Hello, JT. Hello, Dana. Apollo. Courtney. Hi. Excellent, excellent. Welcome back to the West. I'm from Washington. You're from Washington too? No way. Where in Washington are you from? Hi, Manny. Hi. My Pacific Northwest people. Oh, goodness. It's good to see everyone here. Good evening, Cylin. Hi, Michael. Oh, it is so good to see everyone. We're going to get started here in just a moment. We've actually got quite a few people. I figured that doing this on a weekend would actually make it possible for more people to be able to pop in and join, especially those here in the US, because usually I host these on a Wednesday. And a lot of I know a lot of the US subscribers tuning in are typically working around that time. So I was like, let's do Sunday. Why not? Why not? I was supposed to take the day to decomp and unpack, but screw it. So we got a good number of people in here already, but I want to give it just a second more. Good evening. Good evening, Sarah. Oh, from Liverpool. I love Liverpool. Oh, I can't wait to go back. Oh, Port Orchard? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome. Now, I grew up in Issaquah, but nobody knows where the hell that is, so I say Seattle because it's close enough. David, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm spending the afternoon getting caught up on emails, so absolutely going to be hammering that out. Hola. Hola, Carla from Portugal. Awesome. Got people from all over the world. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. I think we're good to jump in and start answering some questions and some Q&As. I hope you all had a fantastic New Year's. I am so thrilled to start 2023 off with a bang. The most incredible incredible road trip, made it here safely. And I hope you are all having a wonderful start to the new year as well. Here's to making 2023 the best and most awesome year so far. I can't wait. So Really quick before we dive in, I've got a ton of resources down in the description box for those who are interested. I've got my courses available, and also today is the first day of registration for my new program, Mindset Mastery Program. You can have links down to that below. First day that we open, the first actual day is going to be January 21st, I believe. But registration is already starting to fill up. So if you're interested, all the information is down below. Definitely don't forget to check that out. And with that said, let's go ahead and I've already got a ton of questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. If I miss you, if I don't see you, I sincerely apologize in advance. The chat likes to skip around a lot, so do bear with me. Let's see. Trying to get started. And I'm not fully awake yet, a little bit jet lagged, so. All right. Manifesting physical changes. Can it show up quick even for drastic changes if done right? Or since it's physical, does it take longer? That's a really good question. And I think that applies to more than just our physical appearance, though I can see how, anything relating to our health or physical appearance might seem to take longer because it seems like it's a much bigger ask or something much quote unquote bigger than, say manifesting a cup of coffee. But I mean, can we manifest drastic changes quickly? Is it possible? Absolutely. Absolutely, we can. We can manifest like that. However, for the vast majority of us, we are very much accustomed to the linear timeline, to things kind of happening in progression, and sometimes things, quote unquote, taking a while. So it really is more of what seems possible for us. It's more about what seems within the realms of possibility. So typically speaking, it might seem like it's a gradual change, but is it possible? I mean, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Michael. All right, trying to go back up. Hey, John. I find myself constantly comparing myself to his ex. She seems just so perfect for him and they have a lot in common, like twins. They even look the same, lol. How do I get over this? So, how to get over the comparisons? And that's actually a really good question in general because I think for most of us, we have a tendency of doing that, where we tend to sort of gauge ourselves against other people and compare and contrast just in general. And we do that in many different facets of our lives. And it could certainly be, it's not always a fun thing to deal with. And I think the best thing to realize, the more that you begin to really dig into this journey, the more that you begin to set into this practice, you will find that there is no such thing as separation, truly. So by that sense, like in that sense, you are essentially just comparing yourself to yourself. It's more like understanding that there is no such thing as competition. There's no such thing. If there truly is no such thing as separation, what appears as separation to us is strictly an illusion, then we're creating it all in our mind. So upon that realization, we begin to catch ourselves more and more going into that mode and sort of stopping it, so to speak. So I think that the best thing to do with the whole comparing yourself thing is to remind yourself of who you are and go back to that first principle, that be still and know that I am God. I'm creating all of it. So whatever I am perceiving and whatever I am assuming is ultimately what's going to be created. But if I change that, if I change my focus, if I change my perspective, if I turn away from that, then it becomes not an issue. Whatever you take out of your focus is what ultimately disappears from your 3D world. So again, it's coming to that realization that there is no such thing as competition, there is no such thing as comparison. It's illusion that we're making up in our mind. And understanding that everyone is you pushed out. So whatever we, you know, give to other people, however we view other people, whatever our assumptions about other people is what ultimately becomes true for us. So if we don't want that to be the case, then we need to redirect. We need to redirect our focus and attention away from that. And instead, put it on the fact that you are the one compatible with your person. You are the one that is so compatible with your person. There's, you know, never been anyone like the two of you before. And really keep your emphasis and focus on that. Da, da, da. Oh, it skips me around a lot. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find my spot. Hi, Missy. I have a non-SP issue. Just found out my baby pooch has a mass in his spleen. Oh. Won't know if it's benign/malign until after his splendectomy. I'm a mess, but trying to stay positive. Pondering how to use the law, but can't see how revision would apply here as I can't undo his need for surgery. Any suggestions/methods on how to approach a situation? Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, when it comes to the health of others around us, including our pets, because our pets are very much family, right? Um, I would, with revision, I mean, I don't really see, because at this point, there's still so many things that we could potentially have happen, right? I would begin to really imagine and set the focus on a healthy outcome, that mass being completely benign and the surgery going well. So imagining that state where you're hearing the vet give you the news that everything was a success, the puppy is just fine, that mass was benign, it was not cancer, and anything like that. So really kind of setting the stakes of how the future is going to unfold at this point. I mean, you can also revise to where you didn't get the news of the mass at all, where instead, whatever the scan was, hear the vet tell you that there was nothing there, that everything looked good. You can revise it that way, but if that feels maybe too challenging or maybe something that feels very difficult to believe, then I would absolutely just imagine a very positive outcome, that everything went well and that puppy is doing just fine and expecting a full recovery. Missy, how much is self-concept necessary and how to fix it? So, how necessary is self-concept and how do we fix our self-concept? Self-concept is everything. It truly is. When it comes to manifestation, conscious or not, it is the self-concept that we're constantly expressing. So, that's a must. That's a must. Whatever you're trying to do on the outside first needs to be changed on the inside. Um, and then that's something I know it's easy to forget that. It's easy to kind of slide back into keeping all of our attention and focus on something else outside of us. But it's the most important aspect. The conception of self, right? Whatever your conception is, whatever your idea is, whatever your assumption is about you, about the situation, about the other person or other people, that's what's going to be expressed. That's what's going to be manifested, whether we're conscious of it or not. And I mean, how to fix it, that's where imagination comes in. That's where, some of these quote unquote techniques come in, whether that's SATs, affirmations, things like that. Those are tools that we can utilize to help us with changing that conception of self. So, I would definitely recommend checking out my, fundamentals playlist. If you go on my page and look at the playlists, there's one specifically that dives into all of that. It's quite an extensive playlist, so there's a lot of information for you there. But it's the most important thing for sure. Is anything really possible? Yes. Yes, it is. Some days I get into this state really easily, other days it feels exhausting. Doesn't feel like double-mindedness, just too tired. Does this slow things down? Um, so some days it's very easy to get into that state of the wish fulfilled, other days not so much. I mean, yeah, yeah, that happens. Does it slow things down? Not not always. It really depends on I mean, I think the biggest factor that quote unquote slows things down is entertaining too much of what we don't want along with what we want. It's that really quick going back and forth. One moment feeling very confident, feeling very secure. It's very effortless to move into that state. And maybe the next moment or next day or two, we're struggling. And it feels like that inner battle, so to speak. Being tired so much, I would just let yourself rest. If it feels like for whatever reason you just are not resonating with that state, it feels like a force or like you really have to work at it to get there. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I would just let yourself decompress, relax, whatever you need to do. It sounds counterintuitive, but the one of the worst things that we can do is try to force and fight our way into the state of the wish fulfilled because that's not how this works. Hi, Missy. Can you share your manifesting routine when you want to manifest something quote unquote big? Yeah, absolutely. So, if there is a specific desire, and for vast majority of the time, I don't really have anything specific that I'm trying to manifest. So, most of my routine just contains something like "Isn't it wonderful?" also known as the lullaby method, where I just really focus on the state of gratitude. I really just let myself marinate in that state of gratitude and satisfaction. And it's almost giving thanks for things that are not yet seen. But if there is something specific that comes up in the 3D, typically that's where I go into sats. And that one is my go-to for anything that may be quote unquote bigger, and really playing in that hypnagogic state. Hi, Missy. Can you talk more about how you manifested your SP the first time? Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know how many of you here have maybe not seen the video that I made about my personal SP story. Um, but the first time I manifested him back was not mm, it was not good. I mean, it was fine for a moment. Um, Essentially, I used affirmations, and this was before I found Neville Goddard. This was before I knew about the law of assumption. I was a student of the law of attraction, and that was all high vibes, vision boards, and affirmations, essentially. So I would just like bombard myself with affirmations all day, every day. And it did work. I mean, he came back, and for a couple of weeks there, it was just like just like old times. It was wonderful. It was exactly how I wanted it. But then I started to settle into that complacency and ultimately slide back into that familiar old state of consciousness that was filled with insecurity, it was filled with doubt. It was just not ideal. And sure enough, well, he left again. History repeated itself. Hi, Missy. Can we erase someone from our reality as if they never existed? Absolutely. I mean, you could. Mhm. Yeah, I would apply something like revision. And if there was a moment, as if they never existed, and as if you like completely wipe them from your memory at all, or just have them leave, because those are two different approaches. If you just want them to leave, then I would just imagine a conversation with a friend or a loved one saying that, oh, this person moved away, or they're moving, or basically getting out of the picture. Yeah. Um, to erase as if you never knew them, never met them, da da da. Yeah, that would be more setting intention, setting, yeah, more setting intention. What is the bridge of incidents? The bridge of incidents is uh, the events that unfold that sort of help to take you from where you are, or where you are currently, to ultimately where you want to be. So whatever needs to happen to get you from point A to point B, that's the bridge. And it always unfolds in a way that you're naturally led. So it also known as inspired action. You'll get, maybe a hunch or an epiphany of some sort that will kind of lead you where you need to go, or somebody else will come in and help play the role of getting you from where you are to where you want to be. Yeah, it's what unfolds for us on the process, during the process. I recently manifested a new reality my self image wasn't ready for, and it fell to bits. It was a reality where I needed great courage, but I felt overwhelmed. Any tips? Absolutely. So, yeah, if you manifest a state that you know you feel like something is overwhelmed, or you are feeling overwhelmed for, I would imagine yourself as the person that, in this example that you gave, has that courage. It really, you can either use affirmations or inner conversations and hear confirmation of being very courageous. In this case, if it's, this self concept that you need to embody, then I would approach it that way and have that be the focus as well. And if I'm totally missing your question, if I totally got that wrong, um, in understanding, but if you manifested into a state that you feel you were not ready for, then I would prepare yourself along with that place, if that makes sense. My SP wasn't over his ex from the beginning of our relationship. Do I need to work on self-concept? I mean, absolutely. So the self-concept is ultimately how we create. It's what is created. It's based on our conceptions, whatever we are, accepting and believing and assuming as true about ourselves, other people, and all of that. So if that is the assumption, if that was, what was playing out, was that your SP was not over their ex, if that was sort of the circumstances that unfolded, then, I would take a moment to say, like, where is that stemming from? Where within myself is that coming to light? Like, why is that manifesting the way that it is? Because it typically points to something along the lines of not feeling chosen, not feeling like you get what you want, maybe not feeling good enough or worthy enough. These are just examples, but if ultimately we're feeling like somebody else is the one that is chosen, like, that's something that we need to be examining because the 3D is just feedback. It's all feedback. So if it's showing something that is not ideal, then it really just allows us to take a moment to say, "Okay, where is that coming from?" Really go within. Oh, it's skipping me around. Sorry, guys, it's skipping me all over the place. I'm trying to I don't know why it does that. Hang on. I finally got to the point that the urgency is gone. I just know it's done and I've found the patience to await it. And oh my God, the movement is insane. I've gotten more movement from SP after 11 years. Wow. Yeah. Hell yeah, girl. That's what I'm talking about. When we get to that place of, you know, everything is fine, like that's more relaxed state, that's you will see so much movement from that. Yeah. Removing ourselves from that state of urgency is everything. And that is wonderful to see. Hi, Mina. Hi. Hey, Missy, can you talk more about revision and how to do it? Do you revise all the bad memories with SP? Absolutely. So I've made a couple of videos about revision that you can definitely check out. If you search on my channel, if you search on the main page, just type in revision, it should pop right up. A few of them should pop right up. But do we need to revise every single bad memory? No. That would be uh, yeah, that might be daunting, especially if there were many moments that were not ideal. I think uh, a good approach to what we should revise, and it was actually I got to give credit to one of my dear sweet clients, Mina, who's in the chat currently. A good way to approach revision, and this is what she came up with, was taking, you know, any kind of circumstance or any belief, any assumption that is not ideal and we want to change, and find the first time that happened to you that you can recall or the worst time that happened to you, basically finding the first and the worst and really revising those. So the ones that sort of come right up to you, the ones that maybe still, pop up randomly are intrusive, or the first time you recall something happening that sort of instilled that belief in you. So for example, if, you're struggling with the belief that, you know, nobody chooses you, nobody wants to you're always second best, then perhaps, going back to the first time that you can recall feeling that, and typically that is sometime in childhood, whatever that looks like. And then also that worst instance that comes up for you the first time that you think about, if there's some kind of intrusive thought, something that was perhaps really, you know, a lot, almost traumatic even, um, those big instances, those times. So the first and the worst is really kind of what to keep in mind when thinking or questioning what to revise. I hope that makes sense. I'm not quite awake just yet. But I got to give all the credit to Mina for that one. Manifesting someone that already loves me but is already married. So I know that can go really against the grain of what we feel is right and ethical and just, but you're not taking away from somebody who's married. You're moving into a state where that version of them is not married. So this isn't about, being a homewrecker in any case, 'cause I get that a lot from people that have, third parties in the SP situation that are married, feeling a lot of guilt about wanting to manifest somebody who is married, but the thing is, all states exist, all versions of all persons exist, so there is a version of your SP, there is a state where your SP is got eyes only for you, and there is no third parties, there's none of that. So that's what we're tapping into. We're not trying to manipulate the outside version of what's in front of us. We're moving into a new state entirely. Is it better to affirm I am now so and so, or I intend I will get or be so and so? So do we affirm from a place that it's already happened or the intention that it will happen? And that's a really good question. I know that can be really confusing. When when affirming, when in imagination, right? So whenever you are applying your imaginal acts, you want to imagine from the place of already being that person, already having that outcome, like from the wish fulfilled, right? So after the point where it's already happened. Now, throughout your day to day, as you're going about your day, it may not, I mean, obviously, your physical senses are going to tell you that, hey, this thing is not here yet. So trying to convince ourselves or trying to, talk ourselves into believing that something is already here in the physical 3D reality is going to probably make us feel delusional. For most cases, it's going to feel pretty delusional. So it's understanding that what we imagine precedes what we experience in the 3D. So experiencing it in imagination first, then it comes to pass in the 3D. So it's knowing that once you imagine it, it must unfold. And so that's why in your day to day, that's where you tell yourself, like, it's already done, essentially. I hope that makes sense. Oh, thank you, child of God. Missy, can you answer why I manifested something with exact words, but it wasn't an assumption? I visualized it and it came true with exact words. So manifesting something word for word, but it was not an assumption that you have because you left a subconscious impression and it played out. So what you imagined, what you had visualized left a subconscious impression. And when that happens, that is what effectively moves us into that new state, what helps to, or what appears for us in the 3D, which is why sometimes we will see it happen and play out word for word or verbatim. Um, if it's not an assumption, then I mean we can manifest things that are not assumptions. We just typically fall back on our assumptions. That's You can almost think of your assumptions and your beliefs as like your default state, whatever those are. Whatever your beliefs and assumptions are, generally speaking, especially those core beliefs, is what we're going to always wind up falling back on. So we can still manifest things that maybe are not those general assumptions and beliefs, but we're going to typically continue to go back to that default state. That's sort of the default setting. We can absolutely manifest things outside of that, but that's what we're going to more often than not return back to. I hope that makes sense. What do you suggest for improving self-love, self-concept, and trust/faith in your desire being fulfilled? That is a really good question. Um, so improving self-love and changing self-concept are not one and the same. Just making that very distinctly clear because a lot of times those lines can get blurred. Um, it is always a good idea to have self-love without a doubt. Um, but it's the self-concept ultimately that will manifest. Improving that really is about and also with the trust and faith. I think building trust and faith in the law is a must. And we do that through a number of ways. Even just observation of our inner talk and our inner dialogues and our reactions, and also paying attention to what's happening in the 3D, we will more and more become aware of the correlation between the two. So even something as simple as that. There's also, things that we can do to test the law, smaller, maybe things that are not as significant, manifesting a cup of coffee, manifesting bright pink cars, things like that. Those are all ways that we sort of begin to really build our faith and keep building on our faith. And as far as the self concept is concerned, that's again where imagination, if you want to change your self concept, it is all through imagination. Imagination is how we are able to explore other worlds, explore other things that, we otherwise could not in the 3D. So it's becoming more acclimated to that person, that version of you that you desire to experience because that version of you already exists. It's already real. We just need to move into that state. We need to animate that state, and we do that all through imagination. So it's exercising that muscle, so to speak. I have a question. Can you explain the difference when people say persist, persist, persist as much as possible, but then other coaches talk about detaching and letting go with zero expectations? Yeah, no, that sounds like a complete and total oxymoron, and that's true. It feels like an oxymoron. It's actually both. So we want to persist in the imaginal acts until we begin to feel that as if like it becomes to feel natural to us. At first, imagining this state, imagining ourselves as a completely different version of ourselves is may feel a bit off. It may not feel natural to us. So it's getting ourselves used to it. I like to use the word acclimating, acclimation a lot. Like getting yourself more and more used to that state and what it would be like, what a day in the life would look like as that version of you that has your SP, that has the successful business, money, whatever it is that you want. So that's where persistence comes in because it may not be immediate that we resonate with that state and that we can just move into that state and stay there. Detachment happens naturally. Detachment isn't something that we force ourselves to do. When you are acclimated to that new state of consciousness, it becomes familiar to you. You're naturally not going to be, or resonate with the things that you were before. And it's naturally going to feel a sense of like that urgency or that fear or whatever it was that was sort of, keeping you in that gridlock is not going to be a thing anymore. It's detachment from all of those old fears and doubts and things that obviously we don't want, we that are not helping us, that are not serving us. And that comes naturally. That cannot be forced. So it's persistence until we naturally detach from that old state of fear, insecurity, doubt, etc. What causes cheating per the law of assumption? Uh, I mean, basically the assumption that people cheat or the suspicion that somebody's cheating. If we have an assumption, whether that's us, like specifically this person or people in general, that they're a bunch of cheaters, then that's what we manifest. Oh, you are so welcome, Symptoms. Thank you for the kind words. Jay Green, thank you for the super chat. I understand the concept of time is an illusion, but what about age? If we want to manifest being physically younger, how does that work? Oh, I didn't catch the last part of that message, Jay Green. I'm so sorry. But when it comes to age and manifesting being physically younger, I mean, absolutely you can do that. Um, how does that work? I mean, there's a number of ways that you can go about that. You could imagine that people are complimenting you on your youthful appearance, on your stamina, on whatever it is that you ideally want to see the change in. So, getting clear on what that looks like. And here in that imagination, here in those imaginal acts, receive that confirmation that that is in fact true. And that's what you will begin to experience. You will see the visible changes as well as, what other people are confirming to you in the 3D. I hope that made sense. If I need to clear that up, let me know. Oh, thank you, Shayna. All right. I just lost my spot entirely. I'm going back up. Sorry, guys. Oh, where was I? Damn it. Am I familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work? Have you tried one of his meditations? I am a huge fan of his meditations. I think they are incredibly relaxing and nice. Neville says, if you find it necessary to recreate the act every day, you are not casting your bread upon water. But what if I don't feel it natural the first time I imagine? And that is a really good question. So, yeah, Neville does say that. He also mentions in a separate lecture about how we do need to continue to imagine until it feels natural for us. What he's more referring to there is the continuation of imagining after we have already felt that impression. Like once you have felt in imagination that like that state of the wish fulfilled, once you have felt that relief and that satisfaction, like once you have sort of really planted that, it's done. It's literally done. He's more referring to in that quote people who continue to try to imagine after they have impressed that desire and after they've planted that seed, so to speak, because at that point it's basically being done out of fear. Um, but he also says many other times, like, if you haven't felt it natural, if you haven't felt that impression, if you have not felt that state of the wish fulfilled the first time, or even the first couple of times, to continue doing so until it feels natural. Hi, Missy. Are affirmations a good way of keeping? Hi, Mimi, by the way. Are affirmations a good way of keeping a good mental diet, or is there another way? So, mental diet is really about just the observation of your thoughts and assumptions. It's essentially just what you are observing and really paying close attention to what we're entertaining. Because most of the time we are completely oblivious and we're operating on autopilot. So we don't recognize all of the ways in which we may be unintentionally occupying that unwanted state or doing things that we don't like. So it's just more about that. And if we catch ourselves entertaining something that we don't like, redirect our focus, right? Like not entertaining that unwanted state. So for affirmations, Yes, they can be very helpful in helping us out of that unwanted state or, keeping us from spiraling, but it also depends on how we're using them. And again, I do have that video coming out about affirmations that is gonna be out, here in the next day or 2 at most. Really going deep diving into affirmations because there's a whole lot of stuff out there about affirmations, and some of it is great and some of it's, mm, not so good. But yeah, affirmations can be helpful. Ideally, we want them to resonate. We want them worded in a way that we can sort of get behind. If we're finding it difficult to accept them, or if our mind is repeatedly trying to reject our affirmations, trying to fight that is not always ideal. In fact, it's usually never ideal. Thank you again for the super chat, Jay Green. Oh, I like the weekend live since I never am able to catch you since it's when I'm at work on a Wednesday. Thank you. You are so welcome. And yeah, I think I may switch to uh, doing these on a weekend because I know that a lot more people are available and able to join, which is awesome. Thank you again for that so much. And thank you for being here. And I lost my spot again. One second. How do you get from faith to knowing? Sometimes I struggle with that at times. How do you get from faith to in my view, that's it's the same thing. Um, it's that faith or knowing that we are the operant power in our reality. It's up to us. It's not we're never at the mercy of something outside of us, of some force or some other person or whatever it might be. It's faith in the law, and it's the knowing that what you imagine is ultimately what becomes your reality. So, um, I look at it as one and the same, unless I'm confused. Unless I'm confused, because I might be. Hi, Missy. When I imagine, it feels real, but not natural. I am feeling I am not feeling the relief of it yet. How do I keep imagining without being in the state of quote unquote trying? That is a really good question. So, and I might need you to break this down for me a little bit more because when we talk about feeling it real, that does mean it feels natural, as in, like, something that could happen to us, something, like, we invoke the tones of reality in it to the best of our ability. We imagine that scene playing out and loop it because we want to get to that place where it feels like, something that like, we're going to that place in imagination, essentially. Like, we're not just going to fairy tale land where, "Oh, I'm daydreaming about this thing, but I know I'm separate from it." Feeling it real or feeling it natural is like you go to prepare that place and you go there in imagination, if that makes sense. So if you can break down a little bit more, like, the difference that you notice between the 2 of feeling it real but not natural, does that mean the tones are real, but it doesn't feel like it's a natural thing for you? And if that's the case, we continue to practice until it does. And that's kind of the point of persistence, what I was mentioning earlier. It's persisting in the imaginal acts until we reach that state where it does feel more natural to us. Because again, I mean, the secret here is that subconsciously the mind cannot tell the difference between the 3D and an imaginal act. So if you go into imagination and you go to that imaginal act enough, it's going to start feeling real to you. Like, whatever resistance may have been there before because it didn't feel natural, well, now it does because you have been there many times. That's a really good question, though. I like that one. What exactly is scripting? What do you write about? You can write about anything that you'd like. Scripting is essentially um, a couple different ways that we can do it, but it's writing out that desire, whatever you desire, whatever that is, from the place of already having it or being it. I've made a couple videos about scripting. Definitely go check them out. If you type in the search bar on my front page, it should, a couple of them will pop right up. For me, that's what I meant by the urgency was gone. I just let go and knew it was done. And then it happened. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that is where faith comes in. Faith in the law that you imagine something. If you plant that seed, it will grow. So let go and knew it was done, and then it happened. Yeah, every time. How can I totally shift my in how can I totally shift my identity and become a completely different person? I want to change every aspect of my life. I want to have had different childhood, even different parents. So if you want a complete reset, so to speak, would strongly recommend something along the lines of the I am meditation or self inquiry, where you go back to that unconditioned consciousness, basically stripping back all of the beliefs and assumptions of this identity, this current identity. Um, and by stripping away all those ideas and concepts, you can then you can attach yourself to these new ideas, new identity, new concepts much easier. So going back to the I am, which is who we really are, that state of unconditioned consciousness. Did you have any resentment towards your SP when you were manifesting him? If you did, how did you overcome it? Absolutely. Yeah, I did. I did have, there were definitely, upon deeper reflection, I absolutely did have some resentment to the things that had happened, some of the things that he had said, blah, 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 blah. hmm And I actually made a video recently, well, somewhat recently, maybe a couple months old, but it was in that video, I go a lot more into detail about how I manifested that person back. So more of like what I did specifically on that journey. In the first video, I talk more about the journey itself, but in this video that was more recent, I talk more about what exactly I did. So I definitely recommend checking that one out. You can go type it in the search bar on my page. It should be the one that pops up that says, this is what you need to know to manifest your person, or something about how I manifested my person back. But I mean, essentially, it's coming back to that first principle again, that everything that I experienced that I thought was them hurting me was my own beliefs and assumptions that played out to a T, because that's how this works. But check out that video. I go a lot more into detail about that. Can you talk more in depth about the I am state or the void state? Is manifestation really instant? Yeah. So The I am state is people calling it the void state nowadays. I mean, I guess that's a term for it. It's who you really are. It's stripping back all of these beliefs, identities, perceptions, the personalities, like all of the things that you have kind of picked up along the way in this human life. Those are all part of the self concept, but your true nature or who you really are is awareness or I am. And that is unconditioned by anything. There is no attachments, there's no conditions, there's no anything. From there, you can quite easily attach yourself to something that would be more desirable or more ideal instead. And absolutely, I need to make a video kind of going into more detail about that. I love that more people are getting behind this and really trying to understand the I am state because that is at the core of who you really are. Is it necessary to go no contact while manifesting your ex? I wouldn't say it's necessary. No. Mm-mm. Now, if you find yourself very reactive to the 3D and what they're doing, I would recommend it. But is it necessary to do? No. Mm-mm. No. I personally did because I was very reactionary to the 3D, but I wouldn't say it's a must. I used to get stuck on an entertaining and undesirable circumstance because I believed I had to figure out why it was happening. Ding, 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 ding. Yep. Yeah. We have this tendency, just in general, most people have a tendency of needing to go into detective mode. Like, why did this person do this? Why did this thing happen to me? And we need to like go into all of the ways and try to figure it out. But by doing so, we are keeping our attention squarely focused on what we don't want. So, I mean, what it boils down to is the thing that happened because we manifested it that way. And why we manifested it that way, again, kind of points to a belief and assumption that we had. If we were entertaining something that was not ideal and then it played out, that's why. But yeah, yeah, we don't need to go into detective mode as to like, what this person did, why they did what they did, or something outside of you. Try to figure out something outside of you because nothing is outside of you. Hi, Missy. I meant it feels like something that could possibly happen, but don't have the feeling it absolutely will. And that's fine. That's fine. We don't always have to have that like conviction that it is going to happen. That isn't always the thing that may not always be there. For some things, we do have that conviction, right? A lot of us do have like strong beliefs that certain things will happen or unfold, but not always. Not always. And it just because we don't have, that clear conviction that this manifestation is going to happen, we don't need it to be. Even if it feels like it's a possibility, like if we cannot subscribe to something happening, if we cannot maybe get to that place of conviction, at the very least, starting with the possibility, playing with the possibility, like this is possible for me. This could potentially happen. That's a really good way to help yourself get out of the, you know, the doubt, basically. The doubt that this is going to happen, the fear that surrounds it. Just start playing with the idea that this is a possibility for me. This is absolutely possible and build from there. What are your thoughts on Florential in general and on asking a right, as in for things that are yours by divine right? I mean, yeah, there are things that are yours by divine right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love Florence Solution. Do I agree with her on absolutely everything? No. If I recall, I think it was Florence that, excuse me, it was Florence that she didn't jive with the notion of manifesting specific people. She was not, to her, that wasn't something that was possible. So, I mean, of course, she had her limiting beliefs, and most people do, but overall, I think she had a lot of really, really incredible things to teach and a lot of things to take away from her that are incredibly helpful. Yeah. Can you recommend any way besides meditation and seeing manifestations appear to get a deeper understanding of spiritual there is no separation? I feel stuck right on the verge of a breakthrough. Yeah, so and other ways besides meditation and seeing things appear. Um, I'm not gonna say out loud the first thing that came to my mind, which is like ayahuasca. Just kidding. Don't do that. I can't promote that on here. But other ways that you could is, getting familiar with that hypnagogic state. That state akin to sleep is, that is sort of our gateway. That is a doorway to something much more powerful than us. Yeah. So self inquiry slash hypnagogic state. I will be doing more videos. It seems like a lot of people want me to go deeper into this, which makes me really happy. So I will absolutely make sure to do so. I visualize in third person and kind of embody the person I am being. I don't enjoy doing it in first person. Will this stunt anything? Um, I mean, it's not to say that that imagining in third person is going to ruin everything. I don't like to say that. Do I recommend imagining in third person? No, because it in its nature, we can only, you know, experience so much and embody the whole point of imagining yourself experiencing that desire is like you want to put yourself there in imagination. So you want to feel to the best of your ability like you are having this experience and you're having it now. And you can only get so involved in third person with that scene. Um, for example, like you can only you can't experience all the tones of reality in third person. For example, like you know, drinking a cup of coffee. If you're imagining yourself drinking a cup of coffee, you're only seeing it, right? But if you're doing it from first person, you can begin to taste it, you can smell it, you can feel the cup in your hand. I mean, just things that we're not able to do from third person, or we're not getting the full picture. We're not fully embodying that scene. So I know that for most people, we're used to imagining in third person. I know that that can be, you know, getting used to changing that can feel kind of daunting or kind of, tedious at first, but it's worth it. It's worth to begin to just start to train your mind to imagine in that first person because that will leave a better lasting impression. I promise. How can I create better behaved children? Mine are young and very triggering. Yeah, kids can be a handful for sure. I mean, the same way that we create anything, imagining what that looks like. So, really get familiar with what that ideal outcome would be. So, how do you want to, you know, what do you want to see in your day to day that is ideal? Like your kids being more attentive and more adapt to listening to you, things of that nature, more respectful, whatever that looks like, get a clear picture of that and begin to put yourself there in imagination. Begin to really, the idea is to get as familiar with that new state and really as immersed in that new state as possible. Like the more that we saturate our mind with that new state of consciousness and we block out everything else, that's essentially how it becomes a new dominant state, if that makes sense. So, but I mean, the same thing that we use to create anything in our world, imagination. To be Rebecca to pick up some ayahuasca. No, I said no ayahuasca. Damn it. Yeah, no. I mean, everybody do your own thing, but I'm not here out here endorsing that. How do I get into the headspace of imagining to feel it and be it now rather than to get something? This is especially hard when repeating imagination acts. So how do I get in the headspace of imagining to feel it and be it rather than to get something? That comes so that's more just, and I know it's one of those weird things because ultimately we're all here because we want something. We desire to see a change in our 3D, and that's okay. That's the bottom line and that's fine. But if we are it's more about trying to help yourself relax into the imaginal act. Because if we're trying to get something that is more likely to make us very tense, it's going to make us feel more pressured because there's something at stake here. If I do this wrong, it's not going to happen. And just all of these things that we ideally want to avoid. So if we go into it with, you know what, I just want to shut out the 3D and go explore in my imagination, go play in this realm, go get familiar with this state. It sort of helps to take the load off a little bit and really just allows you to kind of play around there. And yes, to some degree, there's always a little bit in the back of your mind that's like, well, yeah, I want this outcome. But if that's at the forefront, it's going to feel a lot more tense and stressed. And like there's a lot at stake here. And that's what we would ideally want to avoid. That pressure, that urgency, that almost like desperate, I have to get this right, or like this is otherwise it's not going to end well for me, or anything like that. That is what creates all of the friction and ultimately makes it so we cannot even really embody that state. It feels forced. It feels, you know, exhausting. It feels like a struggle. It feels like we're trying to fight ourselves, and it's just not fun. It's just not ideal. It's just not. Right? So going into it, because if we already have the understanding that what you imagine is what ultimately creates, then you can set that aside for a moment and just say, okay, I'm going to explore and I'm going to, really build up this imagination muscle, so to speak, just as a way to escape the 3D. Kind of the same approach as to when we were children and we would go into our imagination all the time because it was fun and this was something fun to do. And the 3D wasn't anywhere near as exciting. It's kind of the same thing. Hey, Maria. Hello. Good to see you in here. A quick question about my mom. Her SP keeps saying that he does not want to get married now. She revised her past relationships, childhood, sees them different. I can't put my finger on it. So, despite your mom having revised, imagining things differently, seeing him differently, it basically the 3D is not conformed or conforming, I take it. I'm not sure whether she's paying too much attention to her 3D. It's quite hard to know what might be the best advice. Yeah, so, I mean, it's likely it is that, you know, paying giving too much attention to the 3D because that's what we're most used to. We're most acclimated to the 3D and what people tell us, what they say to us. I mean, that can really leave a much bigger impression than what we have imagined initially, right? And it's also I would tell your mom, like, you're getting used to this still, like, you're still getting acclimated and used to all of this. It's really what is one of the biggest things that we take away from the law is that we don't give the 3D the time of day. If it's not what we want, we don't accept it. We reject it. If something is played out different than what we've imagined, we reject it and we go and imagine that again and we plant that seed or imagine until we feel that seed is firmly planted and that it's done. So I can't talk. I would absolutely recommend to tell your mom, take your attention away from that 3D. As difficult as I know that can be, everybody knows how difficult that can be. If it's not what you want, do not accept it. Don't accept it. It's literally going the other way. Ego backlash. Yeah. Yeah, it very well could be, because I mean, that has always been that's what your mom has always experienced, so that's sort of the impression that was left about her SP, that they didn't wanna get married, blah, blah, blah. So that was sort of a seed that was planted, and now it's just uprooting that through rejecting whatever 3D outcome. Everything worked out with Nick just as I intended. Yeah! Yay, Maria, awesome. Girl, you are a master at this. Can you manifest a relationship with a celebrity even if she doesn't know you exist? And even if you are a woman and she is a straight woman? Doesn't matter. Circumstances don't matter. Does not matter. Because there is a state of consciousness if all of creation is finished, right? So every possible outcome, every circumstance, every scenario, every person, every version of every person already exists, right? There's infinite realities, infinite parallel realities. So there's already a state where that, celebrity woman, that straight woman doesn't matter. There's a state where that's not the case. And if you can go to the end, if you can go imagine the end outcome of what you want that to look like, that is how a bridge unfolds, a bridge of incidents. So whatever leads you to ultimately that state of consciousness, you can think of it like we're moving through a number of realities to get to that reality that we want to experience, which appears to us in this 3D timeline, this linear time, as events. So events will have to unfold, something will have to happen to take you from where you are to where you want to be. But pay no mind to the circumstance. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right, I got time for maybe one more question, and then we're gonna have to pack this up. But I have gone a lot longer than I usually do. I'm liking these Sunday Q&A sessions. This is nice. Missy, what actually creates third parties? Well, third parties are created from, typically speaking, it stems from our own insecurities, our own feeling like we're not the ones chosen. We always came in second best. We were not, especially if it feels like you have never been prioritized or have never been like somebody has ever been like, no, you're the one for me. If that has not been your experience, then it can be quite easy to step into a state where that manifests. The third party is a manifestation of our own insecurities and feeling not chosen, basically. If it's all about shifting realities and all possibilities exist, is it possible to shift to a reality where a relative or pet did not get sick and are still alive? Yeah. So this is one I get often, and I know that this goes very much against the nature of what we've been taught, but absolutely, absolutely, there is a state where, you know, a family member, a friend, a pet, whoever, or they're still very much alive and well. Because I mean, death is not actually real. I mean, not the way that we see it in the 3D. Death doesn't exist. Like, it's not that somebody dies and then they cease to exist. That's not a real thing, and that even goes against the laws of physics. So, absolutely, there's a state where there's multiple states where this person is very much alive and well, or your pet. So, yeah, absolutely, it is possible. Now, when I say possible, that is very different from, is it easy to just hop into that state? Because that probably isn't gonna resonate for a lot of people based on how we've been conditioned. I mean, we've been conditioned our entire lives to believe that when people die, that's it, you don't see them again, and that's very hardwired in us. So, suspending that disbelief is a must to be able to move to that state and stay there, you know? It is possible, yes, absolutely. But what if you're not insecure or don't care about them slash focus on them? When it comes to the third parties, what if you're not insecure or don't care about them slash focus on them? So it may not even be that you specifically manifested this person, like, it's not typically that we're like, oh, I think this person's going to come in and come in and swoop my specific person. It can be that we have a fear that somebody's going to come in specifically, but that's not always the case. Um, but everything is based on an assumption. Everything is based on a subconscious impression. Everything that we experience was once a subconscious impression. So if there's a third party there, then at one point there was a seed planted that ultimately unfolded and became expressed in the 3D. What that was and what that looks like. I couldn't tell you specifically and exactly because I'm not in your head, but I would start paying very close attention. I would start becoming, really try to be as aware as possible to the thoughts that you entertain, the reactions, the feelings. If you're not sure why something is manifesting in the 3D, if you're very baffled as to why something materialized, like, that's sort of an indication to start really looking at what you're doing, because it's all coming from us, or just most of the time it's not intentional. But yeah, start really, honing in on the mental diet in our conversation, because you will be shocked what we all entertain in our day to day. It's usually not what we typically think. Would you say your SP came back 100% because you consciously applied the law to manifest them back? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way that the state that I was embodying before, the dominant or general state of occupation before was not one that was compatible with a long-term, healthy, loving relationship. Let's just put it that way. It was ripe with insecurity, fear, abandonment, rejection, all of those things that I identified with are not compatible with healthy long-term relationship. Um, and not to say that, you know, we don't have our moments that, there are people in healthy long-term relationships that have their moments here and there, but it's not a dominant state that they occupy, right? They may something happens, they may move into a state where they feel fearful or whatever, but that's not where they stay and dwell most often. So, yeah, absolutely. I can say 100% that because I consciously moved myself out of that old undesired state, that he came back and we've been happily back together for, God, 5 years? Holy crap, it'll be 5 years this year. That's wild. All right. What if they were there before you came along? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If there was a third party before you came along? I'm a little bit confused by that question. I'm so sorry. You are so welcome. How many times to visualize for it to impress subconsciously? That is going to depend. That is gonna depend. Um, and it's not always that we have to visualize. It's not always that we need to, you know, see a mental picture or a mental scene. Visualization is just one way of many to leave subconscious impressions. But how many times for it to impress subconsciously? That's really gonna depend on what you're trying to do, what resistance, if any, you have towards that. I mean, just depends. Yeah, you're so welcome. Did you find that your other relationships, i.e., with family and friends, improved when you manifested your SP back and worked on your self concept? 1000%. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I've night and day changes from that old self, that old man, without question. Absolutely. All right, you guys. Oh, I wish I could be here all day, but I have so much emails and unpacking to do. It's not even funny. So I am going to have to bid everyone a farewell for now today. We've had a lot of people in here today. This has been very lively, very amazing questions that you've come with today. Thank you so much for everyone who has been here. I am going to try to make weekend Q&As a thing now because I've had so much fun and I much love to all of you. You are so sweet. Happy New Year. Take care. Check out everything in the description box, all the resources down there. And until next time, you guys, don't forget how powerful you truly are. I mean that. Manifesting, guys.